The message came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Admiral Thalia Bennett stood in the United Earth Defense Command Center, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display showing thousands of unknown objects breaching the outer solar system's detection grid. Within hours, humanity would learn they weren't alone in the universe, but this revelation would come at a terrible price. The Nexar arrived without warning or mercy. Their crystalline ships, resembling shards of obsidian, cut through Earth's defensive fleet like paper. Admiral Bennett watched in horror as decades of military preparation crumbled in minutes. The aliens' quantum phase weapons simply ignored traditional shields, vaporizing ships before their crews could even register the attack. "Get me a direct line to all remaining fleet commanders," Bennett ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. The command center buzzed with frantic activity as officers rushed to coordinate what remained of Earth's defenses. "We need to consolidate our forces before they reach the inner planets." The Nexar's strategy became clear within the first day of combat. They weren't interested in resources or territory. They were systematically destroying every piece of human technology they encountered. Orbital stations, defense platforms, communication satellites, all reduced to atoms by their sophisticated weapons. First Officer Julian Rivera, Bennett's most trusted advisor, approached with a grim expression. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from Mars Colony. The Nexar are deploying some kind of ground forces. They're not just destroying our tech, they're hunting our scientists." Bennett's jaw tightened. This wasn't a simple invasion. It was a calculated attempt to cripple humanity's technological capability. The Nexar seemed determined to knock humanity back to the Stone Age, if not extinction. The next 48 hours became a desperate game of survival. Earth's remaining military forces attempted to evacuate key research facilities and personnel to hidden bunkers deep within the planet's crust. The Nexar's ground troops, biomechanical horrors that moved with uncanny precision, pursued them relentlessly. Dr. Naomi Wakefield, Earth's leading quantum physicist, barely escaped her laboratory in Singapore before it was reduced to rubble. Her research into particle manipulation technology might hold the key to understanding the Nexar's advanced weapons, but first she had to survive long enough to study them. "They're targeting specific facilities," Dr. Wakefield reported during an emergency conference with Admiral Bennett. "This isn't random destruction. They know exactly what they're looking for. Someone or something has been studying us for a very long time." The revelation sent chills through the command staff. If the Nexar had been watching humanity's development, waiting for the right moment to strike, what else did they know? How could humanity fight an enemy that had been planning their destruction for potentially centuries? As the first week of the invasion drew to a close, Earth's situation became increasingly desperate. Major cities lay in ruins, not from orbital bombardment, but from precise strikes that eliminated key infrastructure. The Nexar weren't interested in civilian casualties. They wanted humanity alive but powerless. Admiral Bennett made a decision that would change the course of the war. "We need to go dark," she announced to her remaining command staff. "Completely dark. Shut down everything except essential life support systems in our remaining facilities. If they can track our technology, let's give them nothing to track." The order was radical, but it was humanity's only chance. As cities worldwide powered down and military forces retreated to electromagnetic shielded bunkers, a new phase of the war began. Humanity would have to fight smart, not with brute force, against an enemy that had seemingly predicted their every move. Dr. Wakefield, working from a hidden facility beneath the Rockies, began analyzing recovered Nexar technology. "Their systems operate on principles we've only theorized about," she reported. "But there's something familiar about their basic architecture, almost as if." She never finished her sentence. A Nexar strike team breached the facility's outer defenses, forcing an emergency evacuation. As Bennett coordinated the escape, she realized humanity needed more than just scientific breakthroughs. They needed a miracle. But miracles, as humanity would soon learn, often come from the most unexpected sources. And in the darkness of their defeat, The seeds of resistance were already beginning to grow. 6 months into the Nexar occupation, humanity had learned to survive in the shadows. Deep beneath the ruins of Mumbai's quantum research facility, Dr. Rohan Patil hunched over a workbench, examining what appeared to be a twisted piece of Nexar technology. The device, recovered at great cost by resistance fighters, might hold the key to understanding their enemy's superiority. Commander Olivia Santos entered the underground lab, her boots barely making a sound on the reinforced floor. Years of guerrilla warfare had taught the former Special Forces operator to move silently, even in supposedly safe locations. "Tell me you found something useful, Doctor," she said, her dark eyes scanning the cluttered workspace. Patil didn't look up from his work, but a slight smile crossed his face. "Better than useful, Commander. I think I've found their weakness." He gestured to a holographic display showing complex molecular structures. The Nexar's technology isn't purely artificial. It's a biomechanical hybrid, and that's why it's so effective against our conventional weapons. The implications were staggering. The Nexar weren't just technologically advanced. They had merged biological and mechanical systems in ways humanity had only dreamed of. But this discovery also meant their systems might be vulnerable to biological countermeasures. Project Phoenix, as their resistance cell had dubbed itself, began to take shape around this revelation. Commander Santos coordinated with other hidden resistance groups worldwide, using old-fashioned radio waves and physical messengers to avoid detection. The Nexar might control the skies and monitor digital communications, but they couldn't track everything. Dr. Patil worked tirelessly with a team of survivors from various scientific disciplines. Dr. Hannah Singh, a biotechnology specialist, proved particularly valuable in understanding the biological components of Nexar systems. Together, they began developing a weapon that could target the organic elements of Nexar technology without harming human tissue. "It's not just about creating a weapon," Dr. Singh explained during one of their strategy sessions. "We need to understand why they're so determined to suppress our technological development. There's something they fear about our potential." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While scavenging for supplies in the ruins of a Nexar attack site, resistance fighters discovered a partially intact data core. The information it contained was fragmentary but revealing. The Nexar weren't acting alone. They were following orders from something they called the Collective, an alliance of species dedicated to controlling technological advancement throughout the galaxy. Commander Santos recognized the strategic importance of this information. "They're not invincible," she told her teams. "They're just following a playbook that's worked before. But humanity isn't like their previous targets. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome." The Resistance began testing their new weapons in small-scale operations. The first attempts were messy but promising. A targeted biological agent, when combined with conventional explosives, could disrupt Nexar systems in ways their shields couldn't prevent. Each small victory provided more data, more captured technology, and more hope. But the Nexar weren't idle. They began implementing new security protocols, adapting to human resistance tactics. It became a deadly game of innovation, with both sides racing to outthink the other. The difference was that humanity had nothing left to lose, while the Nexar had never faced an opponent that refused to accept defeat. Project Phoenix expanded, connecting with other resistance cells through a complex network of tunnels and hidden bases. Dr. Patel's team shared their findings, while Commander Santos trained new fighters in tactics that combined old-school guerrilla warfare with their emerging anti-Nexar capabilities. The turning point came when they discovered something extraordinary in the Nexar's biological components, traces of human DNA. "They've been studying us for centuries," Dr. Singh realized. "Not just watching, but incorporating our genetic material into their technology. They're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to prevent us from discovering what we might become." This revelation galvanized the Resistance. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future, for their potential. Project Phoenix had become more than a resistance movement. It was humanity's declaration that they would not be controlled, suppressed, or directed by anyone but themselves. As Commander Santos prepared her forces for their first major offensive, she gathered her officers in their underground command center. The Nexer thought they could predict us, control us, because they've been watching us for so long, she said. But they made one crucial mistake. They only saw what we were, not what we could become. Today, we show them exactly what humanity is capable of when pushed to the edge. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change the course of the war. Project Phoenix was ready to rise from the ashes of Earth's defeat, and the Nexer were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology. It was their indomitable will to survive and thrive against all odds. The assault on the Nexer's primary Earth command center began not with an explosion, but with silence. Commander Santos had learned that the best way to fight an enemy that could detect advanced technology was to use none at all. Her strike teams approached the former United Nations building in New York, using nothing more sophisticated than crossbows and chemical-powered projectile weapons. The Nexer never saw them coming. Their sophisticated detection systems were calibrated to identify energy weapons, electromagnetic signatures, and digital communications. They weren't looking for humans using prehistoric hunting techniques and hand signals. Dr. Patil monitored the operation from their mobile command post, a retrofitted subway car deep beneath Manhattan. The biological disruptors are ready, he reported through a primitive radio system. Remember, you'll only have a 30-second window once they're deployed. Their systems will adapt quickly. The resistance fighters moved like shadows through the ruins of the city. Leading the Western approach team was Lieutenant Raphael Morrison, a former Parker instructor who had turned his urban climbing skills into an essential military asset. His team carried the biological agents that would hopefully disable the Nexer's defensive systems. The Eastern approach was led by Captain Diane Wu, whose background in demolitions had proven invaluable in understanding how to damage Nexer technology without triggering their early warning systems. Her team carried the more conventional explosives that would follow the biological attack. The first sign that something was different about this assault came when a Nexer patrol passed within meters of a hidden resistance team without detecting them. The aliens' biomechanical sensors, so attuned to detecting advanced technology, completely missed the primitive weapons and simple chemical compounds the humans carried. All teams in position, Morrison whispered into his radio. "Waiting for your signal, Commander." Santos took a deep breath, knowing that what happened in the next few minutes would either mark humanity's first major victory or their final defeat. "Release the agents," she ordered. The biological disruptors, designed by Dr. Patel and Dr. Singh, were surprisingly simple, modified plant spores that would trigger an aggressive immune response in the Nexer's organic technology components. The delivery system was even simpler. Clay pots that shattered on impact, dispersing the spores into the air circulation systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Nexer facility's external lights flickered. Their supposedly impenetrable shields began to waver as their biological components went into anaphylactic shock. Captain Wu's team didn't waste a second, launching their attack with precisely placed explosive charges. The Nexer responded with characteristic efficiency, but for the first time, their movements seemed uncoordinated. Their weapons misfired as organic components failed, and their normally perfect formation broke down into chaos. That's when they all heard it, a sound that made both humans and Nexer pause in their tracks. A deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The sky above New York lit up with an aurora of impossible colors as a new ship appeared in orbit. "Unknown vessel approaching," Dr. Patil reported, his voice tense. "But its design isn't Nexer. It's something else entirely." The ship was organic in appearance, with flowing lines and structures that seemed to pulse with life. As it descended through the atmosphere, it began broadcasting on all frequencies in a language that somehow everyone could understand. "We are the Helix Collective," the voice announced. "We have been watching. You have proven yourselves worthy of contact." Commander Santos didn't lower her weapon. After months of fighting the Nexer, She wasn't about to trust any alien arrival, no matter how impressive. Worthy of contact, she demanded. Where were you when the Nexar were trying to bomb us back to the Stone Age? We had to be certain, the voice replied. The Nexar are not your enemy. They are our creation, sent to test emerging civilizations. Those who fight back, who show the potential to transcend their limitations. These are the species we seek as allies. The revelation hit the resistance fighters like a physical blow. All this time, the Nexar invasion hadn't been about conquest or destruction. It had been a test. Humanity's response to near-extinction level threat had been under evaluation. Dr. Patel's voice crackled over the radio. Commander, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the new ship. Whatever they're planning, it's happening now. The Helix ship released a pulse of energy that swept across the city. Where it passed, Nexar technology simply shut down. The biomechanical warriors collapsed like puppets with cut strings, their organic components going dormant at some silent command. As the pulse spread globally, the true scope of the situation became clear. The Nexar hadn't been an invading army. They had been an elaborate screening mechanism for something much larger. The Helix Collective, it seemed, had been searching the galaxy for species with the potential to join them, using the Nexar invasion as the ultimate test of resilience and innovation. Captain Wu voiced what everyone was thinking. So we passed their test, but at what cost? How many died to prove we were worthy of their attention? The Helix representative materialized among them, a being of swirling energy and organic crystals. The cost was high, it acknowledged, but necessary. The galaxy is changing. Ancient powers are stirring. We need allies who can face extinction and emerge stronger. You humans have demonstrated that capacity beyond our highest expectations. Commander Santos stepped forward, her weapon still ready. And if we don't want to be your allies, if we decide that any species that would inflict this kind of test on others isn't worth allying with. The Helix being seemed to smile. Though it had no face, the impression was unmistakable. That response, it said, is exactly why we need you. You question. You challenge. You refuse to submit even when offered power. These are the qualities that will be needed in the coming storm. As the sun set over the ruins of New York, humanity stood at a crossroads. They had survived the Nexar invasion, only to find it was merely the prelude to something far larger. The question now wasn't whether humanity would recover, but what they would become in the process. The war wasn't over. It was transforming into something else entirely. And humanity, tested by fire and refusing to break, was about to take its place on a much larger stage. The revelation of the Helix Collective's true purpose had left humanity reeling. But Commander Santos wasn't about to let an advanced alien civilization dictate Earth's future, regardless of their claimed intentions. In the weeks following the Nexar shutdown, Earth's remaining military and scientific leaders gathered in the underground facility beneath Mumbai to plan their next move. They're offering us advanced technology, interstellar travel, and a place among the galaxy's elite species, Dr. Patel summarized during the emergency council meeting. But they're not telling us everything. The Helix representative mentioned a coming storm. What aren't they revealing? Lieutenant Morrison, still bearing scars from the New York assault, leaned forward. We should be asking why they needed to test us so brutally. If they're so advanced, couldn't they have found another way to evaluate our potential? The question hung heavy in the air. Humanity had lost millions in the Nexar invasion. Cities lay in ruins, infrastructure was shattered, and countless brilliant minds had been lost. The price of proving themselves worthy had been staggering. Captain Wu, who had been analyzing recovered Nexar technology, brought up another concerning point. The biological components in Nexar systems, they're not just similar to human DNA, they're exact copies of specific human genetic sequences. They weren't just studying us, they were harvesting us. Dr. Singh's team had made similar discoveries. The Helix Collective hadn't merely observed humanity. They had been conducting covert genetic sampling for centuries, using human DNA to create the very weapons that would later be used against Earth. The ethical implications were staggering. Commander Santos had heard enough. "We're not going to be anyone's science experiment or foot soldiers," she declared. "If there's really a threat coming that has the Helix Collective so worried, we need to face it on our terms." The resistance began a new phase of preparation. While maintaining diplomatic communications with the Helix representatives, they secretly worked to adapt and improve their anti-Nexer weapons. Dr. Patel's team made breakthrough after breakthrough, reverse engineering Nexer technology, now that they understood its human components. The Helix Collective made one crucial mistake, Dr. Patel explained during a classified briefing. By using our own genetic material against us, they gave us a foundation for understanding their technology. We're not just copying it, we're improving it. The improvements came rapidly. Humanity's greatest minds, freed from the immediate threat of extinction, turned their focus to innovation. They developed new hybrid technologies that combined the best of human ingenuity with the biological principles they'd learned from studying Nexer systems. But the Helix Collective wasn't idle. Their representatives became increasingly insistent about Earth joining their alliance. Each diplomatic meeting brought new warnings about the approaching threat, though they remained frustratingly vague about its nature. The turning point came when Lieutenant Morrison's reconnaissance team discovered something disturbing. The dormant Nexer units weren't actually deactivated. They were evolving. The biological components were adapting, changing in response to their defeat. They're not just weapons, Dr. Singh realized with growing horror. They're an experiment in accelerated evolution. The Helix Collective isn't preparing for a war. They're trying to engineer the perfect warrior species, and they've been using humanity as raw material. Commander Santos knew they had to act fast. The Helix Collective had underestimated humanity once, assuming they would be grateful for the opportunity to join their alliance. They were about to make the same mistake again. Earth's new defensive systems were deployed in secret, disguised as reconstruction efforts. Captain Wu's engineering teams worked around the clock, installing hybrid weapon platforms that could target both conventional threats and biological weapons. The Helix representatives never saw the betrayal coming. When they attempted to reactivate the Nexer units, planning to forcibly recruit humanity if necessary, they found their control signals blocked. The hybrid weapons they had helped create were now turned against them. "You don't understand what you're doing," the Helix representative warned during the final confrontation. "The threat we face could annihilate all life in the galaxy. We need soldiers, warriors who can adapt and evolve." Commander Santos stood her ground. "We understand perfectly. You want weapons, not allies. You saw humanity's potential and tried to harvest it. But we're not your laboratory specimens or your foot soldiers. We're your worst nightmare, a species that learns from its enemies." The battle that followed would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the cosmos. Earth's hybrid weapons proved devastatingly effective against Helix technology, but victory would come at a terrible price. The question wasn't whether humanity would win, but what they would have to sacrifice to remain free. The final battle for Earth's independence began in orbit. The Helix Collective's massive ships, organic crystalline structures that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, descended through the atmosphere like avenging angels. But this time, Earth was ready. Dr. Patel's hybrid defense grid activated seamlessly, combining conventional weapons with biological countermeasures. The Helix ships, for all their advanced technology, found themselves fighting an enemy that understood their weaknesses intimately. They never considered that we'd turn their own methods against them, Dr. Singh observed from the command center. They spent centuries studying our DNA, but they never studied our history. Humanity has always learned from its conquerors, adapted their strengths, and evolved. The Helix weapons, designed to overwhelm conventional defenses, proved less effective against Earth's hybrid technology. Captain Wu's engineering teams had created systems that could adapt in real time, using the very principles of accelerated evolution that the Collective had tried to exploit. But the Helix Collective hadn't survived for millennia by being predictable. As their initial assault faltered, they unveiled their true weapons. Massive biological constructs that combined the genetic material of countless species they had tested throughout the galaxy. They're desperate, Commander Santos realized as she watched the monstrous creatures descend from the Helix ships. They're throwing away their pretense of being enlightened mentors. This is what they've always been, harvesters of potential, creators of weapons. Lieutenant Morrison's ground forces engaged the biological weapons in cities worldwide. The creatures were formidable, able to adapt and evolve even during combat. But humanity had learned from the Nexar invasion. They fought with a combination of primitive weapons and advanced technology, never relying too heavily on either. The battle raged for days. The Helix Collective, finding their carefully laid plans unraveling, became increasingly aggressive. They launched attacks on civilian targets, trying to force humanity's surrender through sheer brutality. But Earth had endured worse during the Nexar invasion. Cities had learned to function underground, to survive without advanced technology when necessary. The Collective's attacks found hardened bunkers and prepared populations instead of vulnerable targets. The turning point came when Dr. Patel made a startling discovery. The Helix ships, they're not just carrying weapons, they're carrying preserved genetic samples from every species they've ever tested. They're not an alliance, they're a repository of stolen potential. This revelation changed everything. Humanity wasn't just fighting for their own freedom. They were fighting to end cycles of exploitation that had spanned galaxies and centuries. Commander Santos ordered a change in tactics, focusing their attacks on the Helix ships' storage systems. The Collective's response was immediate and furious. "You don't understand what you're destroying," their representatives broadcast. "We are preserving the essence of countless species. We are ensuring the galaxy's survival." "No," Commander Santos replied. "You're stealing the future from every species you encounter. Evolution isn't something you can control or direct. It has to be free." The final hours of the battle brought both tragedy and triumph. Captain Wu's team, at great cost, managed to breach the main Helix ship's defenses. Dr. Singh's biological countermeasures proved devastatingly effective against the Collective's weapons, and Lieutenant Morrison's ground forces demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength was their ability to combine innovation with sheer determination. As the Helix ships began to fall, their biological weapons turning against them, humanity faced a choice. The Collective's vast database of genetic information could advance Earth's science by centuries. The temptation to use it, to become what the Collective had been, was strong. Dr. Patel stood before the Emergency Council, his face grave. "We could take their place," he said. "Use this knowledge to become the new guardians of the galaxy. But then we'd be no better than them." Commander Santos made the final decision. The Helix database was destroyed, its stolen potential returned to the cosmos. Earth would advance on its own terms, at its own pace. In the aftermath, as humanity began to rebuild, they discovered something unexpected. The Collective's defeat had been witnessed by other species throughout the galaxy. Earth began receiving messages, not from advanced civilizations offering guidance, but from fellow survivors of Helix testing, reaching out to learn and share. A new network began to form, not of masters and subjects, but of equals. Species sharing knowledge freely, helping each other recover and advance. Earth took its place among them, not as a superior power, but as a symbol of resistance and self-determination. Admiral Bennett, recovered from her injuries in the initial Nexar invasion, stood with Commander Santos watching Earth's first diplomatic ships launch to meet their new allies. "We could have taken their power," Bennett mused. "Become the new Collective." Santos smiled. "We chose something better. We chose to be human." The dawn of a new era had begun. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not by becoming something else, but by embracing what they had always been: adaptable, innovative, and fundamentally free. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would they.